All right, this is a little video to explain how conditioning form steps works. The dependency works really similar to any other kind of form element, but this actually has to do with, I think, one of our most complex forms, which is the graduation application. We used to have four different graduation applications, and these have been synthesized into one. A couple of notes about the reason this happened the way it did. Some of it actually has to do um, with the fact that last year, um, rich text outputs to the user were not, you couldn't add a dependency. So if you had a rich text, if you had something you wanted to give to a user, a policy that was conditioned upon their campus or their career or something like that, you couldn't tell it not to be available on a certain page. It was always available. Everything was. Since the last upgrade in Epi, there's new functionality. This dependency area for just showing that little icon right there, that actually never existed for the rich text areas. Again, just to summarize, rich text areas are outputs to the user. We're not asking for anything. It's just where we put in the title of the form or explain a policy or give further explanation to another form element or something like that. And previously we didn't have the dependency, but now we do. Since we do now, we could technically, we may be able to rebuild some of this. The reason it has so many different paths has to do with the fact that different campuses have different terms to which they're agreeing, and this was created a while back when faculty um, would review these, and we just had different things that each student from a different kind of campus needed to agree on in order to proceed with graduation. And so, for example, the Chicago and Spokane information is going to be different than the information that an MDL student has to agree to. So there's 6 bullet points. It has GPA information. Um, it has information on the ministry internship and so on. That's Chicago and Spokane majors. But then MDL has something a fair bit different. And so if you click on the MDL explanation, you'll see that there's actually only 5 bullet points, and while it still has the GPA information, it doesn't have anything about the internship because those programs do not, the BS online programs do not require that information. Recently, the undergraduate school reformed and eliminated the distance learning school and assumed some of the BS programs, so it's possible that this could undergo a reworking. And again, since I can condition these now, it just doesn't necessarily matter. Now I don't think we need to have these form steps in here, but the form is working as it is, and there are other possible use cases for this as well that I can think of. But essentially, you can think of a form step. First of all, you can think of it really just as this button. And when you condition a form step to or to not appear, essentially what you are doing is just saying, telling this button to appear or disappear. It's really that simple. It's tricky to really think through. But if we just take a look, you've got your form element, that's the step, the action step here. So for Chicago, a student will proceed through the form and they'll put in their contact information, they'll put information about their major. I'll go through this just to show what a student would see when they go through this. So they've got undergraduate, okay, so there's some dependency down here where they put in their campus, and again, even more dependency built in here if they're undergraduate online. I'm going to say Bachelor of Science, I'm going to put that in there and that in there so I can proceed. I am planning to attend. We'll say no, I'm not planning to attend. We'll do that. Yes, I confirm this statement. Okay. Now, this is the doctrinal position of Moody, and they have to agree to this statement. So far, the form has not branched in any way, shape, or form. Undergraduate, Chicago, online, and MTS students, they're all going through all these steps the same way. There's the commencement information. Really, the only reason we're breaking this up into different steps is to give bite-sized chunks that are conceptually different. Commencement is different than the program, but it's asking different information here. And then we move on to the doctrinal position. So they're just conceptually different areas. And we wanted to give a nod to that by creating a new form step. So we created these new form steps, but there's no branching. It's not until they get into the end of the doctrinal positions page that this step is in fact different. There are actually 3 different possible form steps that are appearing there. This, the Chicago, Spokane, and other requirements, the other info MDL, and the other info MTS. Those are the 3 possible. Since I selected MDL, I know that the information I'm going to see is actually right here. It's the MDL explanation and it's the agreement here. Those are the 2 items I'm going to see on the next page. Right. Yes, I agree. No, I don't need any further clarification. Undergraduate online. So you can see I was directed to, I've skipped the Chicago and Spokane and other requirements, and I've gone directly, I clicked on this form step. That is because this form step was hidden based on the information that was put in previously, namely the major, the campus, career, and all of that. So if I were to go back to the beginning of the form, and I were to put in graduate, and say that I'm an MA student, it keeps all the same information. Yes, I confirm the statement above. Yes, I agree. No, I don't need any further clarification. Okay, and so now I'm at the Moody Theological Seminary page. So now if you look at the form steps again, I've skipped this just as I did before, but I've now also skipped the MDL information, and I'm now in the MTS explanation area. If I just look at the text here, I've got Moody Theological Seminary bolded there. That's what I'm reading on the actual page. And so on and so forth. If I go back and select a Chicago undergraduate, it'll take me to the initial form step, the first one there, but I'll skip MDL and MTS. And the reason for that, again, as is obvious, has to do with the dependency, and the dependency is built into the form step. So if I were to click the hamburger, click Edit, you'll notice it looks a little bit different. You don't have a tab here that reads dependency. It's a little different. Actually, only thing that I actually have edited here is the settings. So for some reason, that's how Episerver has it. If you are going to put conditions on a form step, it's under the settings area. I don't know why that is, but that's how they've done it. So first of all, I would highly recommend not doing the first blank. It is possible to spread one form across multiple pages. I tried it. It's not ideal, and it doesn't work terribly well. It requires extra load. There's no reason to really do that when this works just fine. And so all you really have to do is fill this information in, and you'll notice that instead of getting all of the previous dependency information where it's only this field will be, and then you can choose either shown or hidden, and then if, and you can do any and all, and then you can change the number of items that the dependency is sort of looking for to validate the logic you've built in. This is much simpler, and that makes it trickier because you can't do as much with it. It's only a positive display, so only display if, and so it's saying only display this form step if field campus contains, you can change that, but you can't create multiple items. It has to depend on one form element. It can't depend on multiple. And so that means that we've got campus, we've got the value equals contains, and the following value Shai spoke. And so much like the return to campus, I had to fiddle with the sort of path, depending on what a student actually indicates. It needs to come from one thing, and so you can't, you have to build a form in a way where this particular form step is looking for logic in one field. You can't say, you can't have this form step looking for multiple things. So where in the beginning of the form, you might think that it's a good idea to just break everything down. Let's have undergraduate Chicago, undergraduate online, undergraduate um, Spokane, and you might have graduate online, graduate Michigan, and so on and so forth. Well, if you're going to build in any logic with a form step, you have to somehow make a nod to only a single form. You can only build logic off of a single form element to make this particular item displayed. So if I go back, again, the value I'm looking for is shy spoke. And so if I go back and I look at again, it's looking at campus, so I know exactly where to go. That particular form step is looking at campus. If I click the hamburger and click edit of campus, I'll notice that behind the value, I've created another, this is really purely for the logic of that form step. The value is shy spoke, shy spoke. The value is actually Chicago and Spokane, but it also has this shy spoke. So now I can use the operator contains and I can look for a shy spoke. I can also, on a separate form element, I could build in a dependency that looks for just Chicago in this same form element of campus, and it would only pull this one. So it's a nice way to sort of do multiple things on one form element by just putting the shy spoke there and the shy spoke there, and I'm using the operator contains. I'm pulling in anybody who selects the Chicago or Spokane campus because it's looking at that value. Now, if I were to look at MDL, let's see how that is built in. So the form step for other info MDL, click the hamburger, click edit. Again, it's on the settings page. So campus equals online, that's simple. So it's just looking at that middle one. By middle, I'm referring to this one right here. So if somebody says undergraduate online, now when they get through to the doctrinal positions, the form element that is actually the form step that's actually appearing is the one for other info MDL, because the other info MDL form step is looking back and seeing that the user at the beginning of this form put in online as their campus, where if they had selected Chicago or Spokane, this form step is appearing because in the value behind Chicago and in the value behind Spokane under campus, it has the value shy spoke and shy spoke under both of them. And so that would be the one that would be appearing. And the same with other info MTS. If I go to the settings here, this one's different. It's academic career option, and it equals GD. I'm not sure exactly why I put the GD there instead of just grad, but if I look here, okay, very simple. And I think I did that just because I think later in the form it would be easier to set up my dependencies. So yeah, if the value equals GD, then I know that I'm going to get the MTS form step at the end of my doctrinal position area, and I'm going to go to the MTS area just like I demonstrated at the beginning. There is one other thing here, and if you watched the video on the change of major form, I have since making this, I have discovered, I think, a better way to do this. But it does get tricky because the list of advisors is different when it comes to students who are in fact graduating. The advising team splits up the duties for each campus differently than just the alpha breakdown. So A through E is not necessarily one advisor if they're graduating. It depends on their campus. One advisor will take all of the undergraduate Chicago. One advisor will take all of Spokane and undergraduate online, where a whole different advisor is taking the MTS students. And maybe they might even have a breakdown for MTS online only programs. So it's very different the way the duties are assigned, but the thing is with this form, I wanted to make sure that the email that's generated is going to the correct advisor. And so I didn't label this terribly well, but the email for each advisor is actually in here. And so, okay, so actually there are three areas. The MTS online only is no longer a thing. So one advisor gets this email, and this email. So let me just show you what I did. This is a little bit tricky. On the second page, there is this checkbox here. The user only sees, yes, I confirm the statement above. To be honest, we don't need them to do that. It's just nice to make sure that they're going through the form with some consciousness and some sentience. And so we added this so that they have to check this, and if they check this, then they're probably going to read this and make sure they know what they're agreeing to. But this actually doesn't perform any function other than stopping the user. However, behind this confirmation, and just to be clear on, okay, so I'm going to choose grad and we'll say MA. So I'm on the graduate path, and if I were to take a look at the MTS one, the contact info confirmation, you'll notice that what is viewable to the user is, yes, I confirm the statement above. Again, that serves a dual purpose. First of all, it lets them check the box, take a moment, and read the paragraph where we ask them to update their contact information. The other thing it does is it actually creates the value on the page, kyle.tharp@moody.edu, who is the advisor in charge of MTS graduates. He is the one managing those students. And so if you go to the dependency, you'll notice that there's some logic built into this, and that logic is confusing to me as I'm reading this, but I trust what I've done, and so it's not equal. I don't know why I would need the second one if I'm excluding it, but in any case, I'm not going to scrutinize that now. Essentially what I've done is I've said only show this checkbox if they selected MTS as their campus. That way it generates an email to kyle.tharp@moody.edu. Now if I go to the other contact information confirmation, so this is the Chicago. Okay. Yes, I confirm the statement above. So same wording that the user sees, and again, that's just stopping them to help them slow down and look at that paragraph and think to themselves, oh yeah, I should do what I just agreed to, which is update my contact information. When they check that, the value behind it is kd.alritz@moody.edu. So perfect. This particular form element has generated the value kd.alritz@moody.edu, and it's only going to be shown if the campus contains Chicago. And again, I'm confused by this. Or the undergraduate degree equals B Muse. I don't know why that's necessary. I think this is the key item here. Yeah, so the key item here is just Chicago. So when a Chicago student is actually filling out this, it will, that is a particular confirmation message they're going to get right here. And when they check this, it's going to generate the value of Katie's email. And then finally, we've got the MDL and Spoke. So This one is only showing when a student indicates they're MDL online or a Spokane student. We'll look at the dependency really quick. This was a little bit trickier, so any, if the campus contains Spokane. So I think what I did is I tried to build in some logic, and I realized there was a different way to do it. And I added the contains operators and Spokane, and I just didn't get rid of this stuff. I think that's what may have had to maybe the source of my confusion for the extra fields here, the extra logic. I don't think any of this matters. I think the important thing is that it contains Spokane. Um, However, in this case, I'm going back on that. I'm not totally sure exactly all the logic. Again, it's not so much about the granular pieces of the form themselves as much as just seeing how that worked. And again, the form element has the choice, yes, I confirm the statement, but behind the value is Kyle. Again, Kyle right now is in charge of both campuses, all three campuses, MDL, which is no longer a campus, but undergraduate online, undergraduate Spokane, and then Moody Theological Seminary students as well, where Katie is the one in charge of just the Chicago campus students. And so that is why we have it split up that way. And when I go back out to the main form here and I go to the email that's generated, you'll notice that I have an email that is going to the contact information, the value behind that checkbox, and that is, so it's serving that dual purpose of just having the student kind of slow down, and then it's also creating the values here. It creates Kyle's email right there, or it creates Katie's email right here, and when the student then submits it, it's generated to those email addresses, and then the student also gets a confirmation message here to a non-Moody email. And then we actually, again, Academic Records is getting these as well in case we need to just reference it, in case a student calls in and says, hey, did you get my submission? We have some Outlook logic built that's pulling all epigrad app at moody.edu emails into a specific folder in Outlook. So, and those are just the 3 generated emails. So that's how the graduation application works. It's one of our more complicated forms, and like I mentioned, it could probably be rebuilt based on the fact that we can now create logic around paragraph or rich text outputs to the user. We'd still probably want to build in the, we'd still probably want to build in the advisor notice somehow. I'll admit we don't have to do it the way we did. It doesn't have to be hidden like that behind the confirmation statement, but that's the way we chose to do it this time around. So that is all.